Sairam, everyone. My humble pronounce at the divine of Lotus feet. Such an incredible honor to be here in Region 6. You know, when I was looking at the topic, selfless service, practice of the way our spiritual process is, to me, it really comes back to the heart. And why is that? I think everything starts with the heart. As Swami says, love is love. You know, it's kind of duplication of two words. But service is the same thing, right? I mean, it's heart to heart. I mean, there's nothing more about it. And Swami teaches us so much. And I think only Swami can teach us about selfless service. So we don't really need anyone to talk about it. At the same time, it's so important that we learn from each other what service means. As Sister Lakshmi was alluding to earlier, when we think about service, Swami uses the context of selfless service. That is, no expectations, giving up what we have to those who need, and not expecting anything back. But the mind plays such a game sometimes. You know, when we give something, and I'll give some examples later on. You know, when I was young, when I used to give something, or my father used to give my things to others, I used to get very upset. But later, you know, the way the mind plays is that, you know, so even if I didn't get upset, you know, if I said, okay, that's fine, you know, I don't mind losing something to someone else. The mind plays games with us because immediately the mind says, I can buy it back. Something similar, I can buy it. So we give, we take. But one thing we really don't like getting back is our ego. And I think if we really concentrate on our ego, that everything in our lives becomes selfless service. Because that is something we like to give away, but we never want it back. Which is not easy, but hopefully that's, you know, what we're going to be doing. You know, I always like to keep things very simple, and that's how I've always been in my life. You know, I should probably be reading more and more of Swami's literature. I do, and it's something I've been trying to do. But to me, starting with simplistic things really gets us a much long way in our spiritual paths, because a lot of times we sometimes concentrate on the things that seem so far away. We don't concentrate on the small things in life. And such an important thing that we start doing that in our own lives. I'm going to share my own journey to Sai, because ultimately our goal is to reach that Sai in each one of us. Next one. I always start with the heart, because to me, anything that we do, from a very young age, I've learned that you follow your heart. You know, you might make mistakes, but you're getting what you want. You know, that's something, you know, otherwise you always think about, you know, why have not been able to do something in my life. And there were times when I was very young, I used to kind of run away from home because someone asked me to come and help somebody. And I never used to tell my parents either. Of course, they were very worried, but I had the satisfaction that I was actually following my heart. And that was really instilled to me by my father. And faith and surrender is such an important thing, and I'll show in the talk some of the examples that I have experienced. You know, we always say that we have faith in God, or in our case, in Swami, and we of course surrender. But to me, surrendering means that you have faith, you do something, or you ask for something, or you hope for something. Swami knows what's best for us. And we have to be very accepting of what's given back to us. Not that what we want, but what is given to us. To me, that's surrender. That's true surrender. And not really think about what we have not received, actually. And love is the first thing. One of the things, next slide, is that reflecting on our own transformation. When we always look at others to inspire, that's very important. I think I always look at others, what are they doing? How do I inspire myself? But I think it's very important for us to kind of self-reflect. Where have I come? One day when I was speaking, someone asked me a question, how have you changed? The question was, what was the best experience, miracle that you experienced? So I went on and on about this beautiful experience I've had. Then I realized that was just an experience. The important thing I realized at that time was, has it actually transformed me? Have I actually changed to be a better person? If that's not the case, it's just a beautiful experience. And I think we all need to self-reflect. How have I changed with all these experiences that I'm experiencing every day, retreats or whatever it is? Have I moved forward in a spiritual path? And I think that's important. Who knows that the most than yourself? I always say, only we know ourselves the best. Of course, Swami always knows everything about everyone. But beyond that, no one else can tell us how we have changed. We are the ones who know that best. So my own self-reflection, and this is something I've been really pondering more and more these days. Swami says the true meaning of surrender is a recognition of the fact that in everyone and everywhere God is present. Nowadays, I actually conduct myself, stop the day till the end of the day. When I see someone, anyone actually, I first acknowledge God in them, that heart-to-heart connection. Then only I actually think about who they are, what they're doing. And that's really helped me personally, because it kind of takes away all the biases, all the assumptions and presumptions. Really, Swami's message, hey, it doesn't matter who it is, whether they're doing good to you or not, there's still God in them. So at least for my own transformation, that first recognition that, hey, there's God in you. Let's start from there, and everything else will happen, whatever that may be. Next slide. I want to start the talk with my father. Growing up, of course, Swami is the ultimate father. But to me, growing up, my father was an absolute inspiration. I used to just adore him, just watch him. Both my parents are doctors. My father is very tall, more than 6 feet. And I was young, at home, on weekends, you will not see me without his coat. So I'm this height, and he's 6 feet tall. I used to wear this white coat throughout the day, just hanging around, walking at home, that white coat dragging behind me. I just used to adore him. What he used to do. He used to bring people off the streets, give them vaccination in the rainy season. I could never understand the significance of it at that time. And I was mentioning earlier, he also used to give things that I thought were mine. I still remember once, I was something that I had bought. I used to live in the US and we went back to India. It was basically a piece of cloth that I had bought for myself to stitch a shirt. And when the time came that I wanted to get this shirt stitched, I couldn't find that cloth. I was very upset. And it just so happened, I was going somewhere, I was sitting in the back of the car, and I see this bicycle next to me, and there's this kid on the bicycle, and he's wearing that cloth, that shirt. I'm thinking, this design, I got it from the US. There's no way this kid can get it in India. And that was the cloth. Then I realized that that kid was the son of my teacher. So I went home and I was kind of complaining, and my dad still doesn't tell me anything at that time, but ultimately I find out that my dad had given this entire cloth to the teacher to get it stitched for the kids. that made me realize, how sometimes, we get so caught up, get so attached to these things. But what my father did was much, much more important than what I was experiencing. The loss was minimal compared to that giving, what my father had done, actually. And of course, I've changed over the years. Nowadays, I don't care. But I think all of us kind of go through this in our lives, and for different things. But that giving up and still feel very happy about it. Doesn't matter what the outcome was. Sometimes we want to give to people that we want to give or we like or whatever that emotion is. And I think it's very important for us to think about giving to anyone. It doesn't matter who is in front of you. If that person needs it, give it. It's not for us to judge or give based on what our judgment of that person is. That's how I feel, actually. Next slide. And of course, Swami has become I lost my father when I was very young. He's my father, my God. Next slide. Swami has given me a lot of opportunities to serve, and I think he's giving all of us a lot of opportunities to serve. I think a lot of times we don't recognize it. We put a label to opportunities, to things in our lives to do. And when they happen, that we think of that as an opportunity that was given by God. What we don't realize is that everything is an opportunity. Every single act from morning till evening, every day of our life is an opportunity to serve. And Swami says, having that opportunity is a grace. So if we look at everything that we do as a grace from God, that itself becomes an opportunity. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. It's the need. Are we taking care of that person in front of you? That's much more important than how did I grade that need. So he has obviously given me, being a doctor, a lot of opportunities for me to travel. But even before I became a doctor, there were so many opportunities, I had to give, basically. So I think, again, a lot of people say, oh, you're doing all this because you're a doctor, you're in a position to do them. That's all relative. There's so much to give for every one of us. That means that every one of us has an opportunity in one sense or the other to serve without expectations. Next slide. Now, Swami says, no joy can equal the joy of serving others. One day in an interview with doctors, Swami was going to each everyone, and asking, what do you want? I was very confident that my turn was going to come. So I had a question in mind. I knew exactly what I was going to ask. The mind starts playing games, right? And the brother in front of me, he asked for a ring, and Swami gave a ring. Now my mind is thinking, maybe I should ask for a ring. I do like rings. But immediately, thank God, my mind immediately, I was able to immediately think to myself, no, I have this in mind. That's exactly what I'm going to ask that's Swami. Then, my turn comes and Swami says, hey, what do you want? He was asking. I said, Swami, I want to serve you for the rest of my life. I meant it. And then he asked why. And I said, Swami, it makes me really happy, Swami. I realized in that moment, he actually spent like 1.5 hours with us, talking to everyone, giving us advice and all that. And it's somehow, you feel very free. I was feeling very casual, Swami, I can ask him anything. And I said, Swami, it makes me really happy, Swami. And then Swami said, happiness is external. He told me what you're experiencing is joy. He said the joy comes from within. So it's such a beautiful thing, and every time I think about, what I'm doing, I always think about, is it actually giving me joy from here, or is it something very external? I like something, or whatever it is, but is it actually giving us joy? Is it actually transforming us? Is it actually moving us to the next step? Next slide. Going back to the passion and following your heart, one of the things I've learned over time, is that I now always tell this to people as well. Whenever people even ask me, why are you doing this? Aren't you busy? Or my philosophy is always, my heart tells me, I just do it. If I can do it, of course, if I have time, I'll do it. I'm not thinking about beyond that. So this was first international medical conference that was in Puttaparthi actually, several years ago. And I was not part of the organization team or nothing actually. Then one of the doctors who was leading, Dr. Radha Batina, she said, I want you to help with this, and I said, fine. And Dr. Narendra Reddy, chairman of the SSIO, called me. I've never spoken to him at that time. Said, can you help? I said, fine. But that was just, everything was before the conference. So I go to Puttaparthi, and I was literally itching to do something, right? One thing I've learned in life is that if you want to do something, sometimes you may have to ask, People don't always ask us, right? Because everyone is busy, whatever the situation is. I've learned in life, there's nothing wrong in saying, can I do this? Can I help you in a way? If they need help, they'll take us. If they don't, that's fine too. We also have to be ready for the no as well. So that's also very important. And I think that really tells us, that aspect of humility for ourselves, which is so important. So I go there, I'm trying to do something. So I was walking down the stairs and I see a bunch of people helping with the registration. And I'm like, okay, that seems kind of nice, some work. I said, brothers, can I help? I said, of course, they were so loving, Then I got involved and I was doing this work, that work, and I got really more and more involved. And then finally the conference happens, and it was such a beautiful conference, Swami, really so beautiful, the whole thing. At the end of the conference, they picked 9 people to receive a memento and blessings from Swami. And I was picked as one of them. Now if you think about it, what were the chances of someone like me who had nothing to do with anything at the beginning, now, next slide, receiving a memento from Swami? That's interesting, right? And to me, what I've learned was that I wanted to do something. I went and asked if I could help. I was lovingly accepted. And I just did that because I wanted to do it. It made me so happy. Everything came from that heart. And then here I am, blessed to receive a gift from Swami. And I think that's an important lesson in my life. That there was no expectation. That was the last thing I was expecting, to be there, go to Swami, and get that memento from him. But that was not the reason I did that, right? The reason I did that was because I wanted to do that. My heart was telling me to do that. And I think everything in our lives, I think we need to do that. We need to follow it, at least for me. That has helped me tremendously as well. That helps us kind of see the transformation in ourselves. I always use the word, I think I made it up, but I don't know if someone else made it up. I always say inspire and be inspired. What does that mean? Is that all of us have something to inspire others. I think we should never think less of that, not in an egoistic way. The things we do in our lives can be inspirational for someone else. Always keep that in mind. We all get inspired by each other, right, in this room. There's something, everyone inspires each other, okay? At the same time, be very open to become inspired as well. And it does not matter who that person in front of you is. Whether it's a young kid, I get inspired by young kids and the YS all the time. There's so much you can learn if you just happen to listen and see them, right? It may not be what you do. So if I always, even my students and my trainees, I always say, I I'm not going to learn too much medicine from you. And I say, I hope I don't, because I think I probably know more than you. I should. But the point being, I can learn other things from you. I can learn how to be a better individual, better disciplined person. So you're teaching me something. I'm teaching you something, you're teaching me something. In that process, both of us are benefiting. So that's what I mean by inspire and be inspired. Next slide. So I want to start with, this is where I really started getting involved with young adults. I think I was just beyond my young adult age at that time when I moved to Michigan. Hurricane Katrina happened. And at that time, the organization wasn't really sure. We haven't done much of disaster relief projects at that time. And then the leadership wasn't really ready. I didn't know exactly what to do. And the young adults, most of them from Region 5, but other regions as well, decided we're going to do something. We're not going to wait, right? Not in a disrespectful way, but wanting to serve. So they formed together, they called themselves Sai, that's what became the Sai Katrina Project. And they needed a couple of adult chaperones, and I was a doctor, because when there's a disaster, there's always a medical need. They said, "Hurry, uncle, can you help?" I said, "Of course." So there were 2 adults, and the entire gang was young adults. Next slide. And they did amazing work. They got together, young adults from across the East and Midwest, and then landed in Tylertown, Mississippi, where they adopted a church. Next slide. And started working. So there was no delay in anything actually. And I was able to do a lot of medical work as well that time. And this is the beauty of, people always ask, why do we need to do things together or part of the organization, for example? There's a role for that because we can do much more when we are together. Next slide. And people are always watching. I always tell people are always watching us. That's not a reason for us to conduct ourselves in such a way to please them. We still need to be ourselves, but be cognizant that there are people watching us. I look at it from the perspective of getting inspired or whatever the case is. And this was the reverend at the end of the day. He was so inspired by our young people. He said, "I don't know who you are and where you came from, but I know for sure the Lord has sent you. We have been praying to our Lord to come to our aid, and you have brought Jesus to us." No one talked about God, no one talked about Sai, but he saw God and God's grace through our young people. Because why is that? Because because their heart told us, hey, this is the right thing to do. You see someone suffering, this is what we want to do. And I think it's very important for all of us to support the young, or whoever, any of us actually support each other who wants to help others. That was such a powerful, everyone was crying when he was saying that actually. It was so touching, but he spoke from the heart. He saw God in our young adults. That's very important for us to kind of keep that in mind. Next slide. And then came along Haiti. Haiti really taught me so much. Next slide. Haiti, the experience in Haiti taught me how much we can do as a group, as an organization actually. Till that time, we were doing small things, but we never got involved in a big way. It also taught me that when we work with others, when we join hands with others, we can even do much, much more actually. Open to working with others. Because everyone wants to serve, right? There's so many people out there, good people out there who wants to serve. Whether it's selfless or not, that's a separate issue. We're talking about selfless service. We can be selfless. It doesn't matter what the others feel actually. But the goal is to help. So important for us to kind of work towards that goal. So one thing I've learned is with the Haiti project, we were the only organization, people don't realize this, we were the only organization which was involved in Haiti beyond the first few months. A lot of times when disaster happens, the big organizations like American Red Cross, all the way, they come, they're really, because they're able to do big things, right? They come, they do, but they leave pretty quickly. We were there for a few years, and we actually were there providing medical relief for 1 full year. We had teams going every single week for a full year, actually. So that's kind of the beauty of, but it also told me to work with other organizations that we work with Direct Relief International, the United Nations, Port-au-Prince in the US, in Haiti, that's a big United Nations, and USAID, actually. Anyone who wants to do any work anywhere, contact and register with USAID. It's very helpful if you're a US citizen, actually. Next slide. So, this is a beautiful story. So what happened was we reached, those days you couldn't fly directly into Haiti. You had to go to Dominican Republic and then take this bus across to Port-au-Prince. So what happened was, we got there one evening, and 2 a.m. we had to go to the US Embassy to get into this bus, which was going to take us to Port-au-Prince. So 9 of us were there, most doctors, but a few volunteers as well. So we could get into the bus. We didn't get into the bus because they have to confirm that you were on their list. And what happened was, the driver came, we were there, and the guy who was supposed to check off the list didn't come. Hour goes by, 1.5 hours goes by, and then the driver is getting very antsy because she's got to drive 6 hours, drop us, and then come back again to Dominican Republic. So he calls this guy, and the guy says, "Oh, I'm still sleeping. I don't think it's my shift today. Just get them into the bus." So the driver says, "Just get into the bus." And we get into the bus, and then we get to the border, leaving the city, and then the bus stops. This army comes, they get into the bus, and they say, "Who's in charge?" Mind you, I was not the leader for this team. I was just one of the 9 people, right? And when this guy asked that question, all the other 8 brothers point their fingers to me. So I'm like, I was getting so nervous, I didn't know what to say. So I walked to the front, I was like way behind, I walked to the front of the desk, and they said, "Who actually gave you permission to go into the bus?" I had no clue. And I was thinking, who can I say something? The only name I could remember was one of the brothers, the Sai brothers, Oscar something. I don't remember his name. No. Oh, I was very confidently said, Oscar so-and-so, The guy looks at me and says, "Oh, okay, you can go." So we go and go all the way to Port-au-Prince and go to the United Nations. We thought we were very smart. We go to the United Nations and we say, "Let us reserve this bus on our way back." Okay. I actually ended up staying for 2 weeks, but all the others came back in a week. So we go to the United Nations, and we say that we're so-and-so, we get in the bus, and the guy was a bit confused. He goes in, comes back about 15, 20 minutes later, and he says, "First of all, I don't know who you are. I don't know how you got into the bus. Never mention this to anybody, and you're never going to get back in that USA bus again." To me, this was absolute Swamis Leela, right? He made sure that that guy who was going to check off the list wasn't there. Because in that entire bus, a 66-seater bus, we were 9 and 2 other random guys. That was it, in the 66-seater bus, actually. So I think it was a beautiful experience from the perspective of, if we just do our work, things will happen. I always say, whenever for us at work, being a doctor, you can't just leave. You gotta make up changes, arrange your clinics and all that. But sometimes all that takes time. My philosophy is that if I need to go somewhere, especially suddenly, first thing I do, pray to Swami, and I actually book my tickets first. Even without having that leave. I have no idea if I'm going to get the leave or not, but I actually book the tickets first. It worked so far every time. I end up getting the leave somehow or the other. So these were all the U.S. Army who were accompanying us actually. So USA, the U.S. Army accompanies you. So we had this first-class treatment all the way into Port-au-Prince. But we weren't supposed to be there. We were actually not on that list of that guy. But if that guy had come, we would have even got on that bus. So this is the beauty of just doing what you will have to do. Next slide. And again, I want to echo the power of the youth. I always say the power of the youth because they teach us so many things beyond what cannot be done, what we think cannot be done. The youth were involved. There was young adults parallel. I was working with one of the young adults to actually get YAs into each team every week. And there, if they were medically related, they were helping us with the medical. But they were also helping with the youth. They actually worked with the local youth to empower them to actually work for their communities. They did so much for the entire year, actually. Next slide. When we do our work, remember, just as the Reverend recognized God in our young adults, when we do our work, we reflect God. I truly believe it. Again, not in an egoistic way. People see. So this was we had two churches. We call it a small and a big church. So one day, the two volunteers, they were all doctors, they came to me and they said, Dr. Hari, we are going to have a Sunday sermon. Can you just come and join us? I said, of course, This was after all the other brothers left. So I go to church on Sunday morning, and there was hundreds of people, who came, who gathered there, and there were like 6 or 7 priests from other churches across town. And each one starts giving a speech, everyone is done with their speeches, and then one of the priests gets up and he says, today we have, our sermon is going to be given by a guest. So I'm thinking, I'm counting it throughout, I'm thinking, God, as far as I can see, every priest that I laid my eyes on have already spoken. Who is this guest? Who's going to talk again? I'm thinking someone's going to talk again, giving the sermon. Sermon, that's the big thing, right? For the church, the Sunday church. And then he mentions my name. Dr. Hari is going to give the sermon. So here I'm thinking, oh my God, first of all, at least that immediate thought was, I'm not a Christian. I've been to churches when I was young, but I've never given a sermon. Who am I to give a sermon? I'm not even a priest, I'm not a Christian. What role do I have? Made me realize, it does not matter. If you do good, people see God in you. It doesn't matter if it's from a different faith. They see their God in you. Otherwise, why would they, of all the people, ask me to give the sermon on a Sunday morning? Now comes the hard part, right? The sermon itself. I'm thinking, what do I even say? I have no idea. So I'm thinking in that fear, I'm trying to remember every Swami's code as much as possible. I'm just literally kind of saying Swami's codes. Be good, do good, help others. I know you're suffering, but you still gotta help, your brothers and sisters. And in this church, like every 5 minutes, they're all getting up and saying, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Because I had time to think because they speak French. So as the guy is translating what I was saying, I'm trying to remember even more quotes from Swami. So that gave me time to think about more quotes of Swami. But to me, it was such a powerful experience that, and I think it's so important, because otherwise we put these walls of who we are, what God is, what God is to us and for others. Are we thinking of the same God? And here, they're breaking that shatters, right? They're saying, it does not matter. God is God is God, as Swami says. And you're that reflection. I think you are in a position to give that sermon. It's nothing about me, actually. it's about all of us who reflect that love for each other. To me, that was such a powerful experience, actually. Next slide. One thing that I've noticed anytime you go to disasters is that, wherever there's God, idols, nothing is broken. Everything around is broken. The glass, building, everything is away. Philippines, Sri Lanka, the picture of God, picture of Jesus Christ, the idol of Jesus Christ, Mother Mary. This was in Philippines, Swami. That was in Sri Lanka, I think, or Philippines maybe. Everything is concrete and nothing has happened. Everything around is in pieces. Just kind of showing that power of that divine. Next slide. And then as mentioned, I've been across so many places. If you want to experience absolute depth of humility, you gotta go to Russia and Kazakhstan. Not that y'all can go, but it's very inspiring. Most of the Russians who follow Swami and Kazakh as well, most of them have never seen Swami in Parthi. But they've seen Swami in person in Russia, in Kazakhstan. They got dreams about Swami. So it's pretty, unbelievable, but in a good way. And again, Swami says, "I'm everywhere," right? And I think all of us have experienced that as well in other ways. But they're so humble. One thing they taught me is that it doesn't matter who you are. Whatever the work is needed, you gotta do it. That's something I've learned from my father as a young boy. It doesn't matter, just because I'm a doctor. Of course, people say, "Oh, you're a doctor, you should do only this, you don't have to do this." It doesn't matter. If the need is there, if I have to clean the floors, I gotta clean the floors. It's not about what my position is, whether it's I'm a leader or a doctor, whatever it is. The work needs to be done, and I think the Kazakhs really show us, and the Russians show us. And the reason I found out was, after the first trip, they always give this like a musical presentation, music, dance, and all that for the public. And there was this famous opera singer, and they were introducing all these people, all these amazing people. And that opera singer was actually cleaning the floors every day. Kind of shows us that when the work needs to be done, it does not matter who you are, that all the positions, we attach these things and give importance when it really shouldn't matter. So I think that becoming that humble to do whatever is needed. Next step. So this is a beautiful experience, brought tears to me and my interpreter. So the doctors are given interpreters because we can't speak Russian. And so this lady comes. I'm a gastroenterologist, my stomach intestines and all that. So this lady, so they were trying to send patients who had GI problems, and this lady comes to me as a GI patient. And I was talking to her, and she was going on and on about her life, her difficulties in life. That's important. Listening is such an important thing. If you're thinking about service, simple listening is so important. Sometimes we say, what are they talking about? It's irrelevant or it doesn't make sense or whatever. It does not matter. For that person talking, they're trying to gain something from you, just that listening. They want someone to listen. That's exactly what we did. We just listened. She really didn't have much of any GI problem, actually. She was just wanted to talk about different things. I went back asking her, what's your GI problem? Because I didn't want to miss that. But in the bigger picture, she didn't have much of anything. But we just listened for about half an hour. And then she gets up, she looks at both of us, and this is what she says. She says, word to word, "I see peace in your eyes and love in your heart." And then both of us started crying. It was so powerful because, again, that is the reflection, right? That is a reflection of our love. That 100% giving that attention to people who are trying to talk to us. It does not matter what the content is. They want you to listen. Our role is to listen. Of course, we have time and whatever that case is. judge on the content of that talk, right? So it was a very beautiful experience. Again, it really humbles you, experiences like these, really kind of things about, makes us reflect on not only who we are, but what we should aim for. And we're talking about the path, right, of spiritual progress. Next slide. We have had the privilege to do a lot of medical camps in Prashanti, Nilayam for years. And it was always, Swami always was teaching us, anyone who comes to see you, see Swami, see God in them. Act as if there's God. Every patient is God incarnate. Next slide, you can go through them. Next slide. So one day, he always used to, those days, initially at least, we used to sit on the veranda, the man used to sit in one corner, just in a line with a regular crowd, for many years actually. And women obviously separate. But Swami always used to go to the women and talk to the women doctors, the women team, and then just go inside. He never used to come to the men's side. And the women, they're feeling sorry for us. And one day, he gave them all Namaskar, blessings to touch their feet. And, I think they asked something to the effect of, oh, Swami, what about our men? Feeling sorry for us. But they could see, right, he's not coming outside. And Swami said, and he was asking about serving and all that. He said, the opportunity to serve itself is a Namaskar to you. It's not the physical touching of the feet, it's just an opportunity. As Swami always says, so opportunity is a grace. Here he's saying that every opportunity you have to serve another brother or sister is my Namaskar to you. How powerful is that? How convinced are we that's the case? That's how we need to come. It is simple, but that's where we need to get at. Next slide. This was a group interview he took for women separately from men. He spent a long time, after about an hour, he gets up and we're thinking, the interview is over. He goes to the other corner of the room. He kind of switches, turns the fan on a bit higher speed. He comes back, sits down, and he says, I think it's a bit hot. So he go back. He could have just told someone in the corner, right? And then he kind of talks for a much longer time after that. One of the things with this, a lot of times we all get happy when we see a manifestation or something, a miracle, or the way we think of miracles happens, or having the opportunity of those days to talk to Swami or see Swami close by. One thing I realized after this long interview was that I entered that room thinking, at least for me, Swami's God, there's nothing more to that. I left that room with the same emotion. And that interview, that hour-and-a-half long interview, did not change how I felt about Swami. Because there was no need for that change. That interview did not need to happen for me to have a different perception of Swami. And I think that's very important because how we view each other, if we really listen to Swami's message of God in each one of us, that perception, that view should not change how we are conversing with each other, how we judge each other. That's the key. That's where our conversation should start. Every single moment of our lives. Next slide. So we had a lot of opportunities to kind of give reports at the end, we kind of summarize everything and give, and these were some of the pictures that you can keep going. And then, I'm a gastroenterologist, so, I really wanted to, I was thinking about, God, it'd be so nice to have a gastroenterology services in Puttaparthi. And as I was thinking about it, I get a call from Dr. Reddy one day and he said, Hari, I've been thinking about this, what happened to the gastroenterology unit? I didn't talk to him, he didn't talk to me, he didn't know what my mind was thinking or vice versa. And then he said, get me some names of gastroenterologists that you know. I'm going to, particularly in a few months, I'll take it to them. And Swami, I made a list of 9 people that I knew at that time. And Swami flipped to each one of us and approved each one of us. And he said, go, start. Not only that, he also gave the exact date of the inauguration of the gastroenterology endoscopy. That's the beauty of it. I mean, he's like thinking way ahead, right? And I've never worked in the super specialty hospital. I used to work in the general hospital. So here I'm trying to get to know people and order things, because it's a big task. I don't know what to do, but I got help. And the time came, and what happened at that time was I decided to leave University of Michigan because my ex-boss created this amazing position for me at the Cleveland Clinic. He said, come hurry, and I went there. But I went there, I wasn't really happy. So 6 months later, I decided to come back to University of Michigan. I had left. It's not easy when you leave, but people just want to take you back, right? So I go back to my boss. He's a Chinese gentleman, Dr. Owen. I go to, his first name is Chang. I'm sitting in his room, just me and him. I go to Chang, Dr. Chang, and I say, Chang, I want 2 things. One, I want to come back. Okay. And he was very, very happy, actually. 2, and this was just before all this was going to happen. And 2, I need to take 6 months off. Because my plan was at that time, when this unit started, I thought that if I said 6, maybe we'll say 3, whatever. I don't want to take any chances. Because I wanted to stay, make sure it starts, everything goes well, and so I wanted to stay in Puerto for a few to several months. That was my plan. You know what the first thing he asked me the question? He said, you mean you're going down to see Sri Sathya Sai Organization? I've never talked to him about Sathya Sai Organization. I had given him, there was a report, at the previous year I got the Dean's Award for service, and I always mention the organization anytime. And I've written that, the Sathya Sai Organization, actually. I mean, that was like the previous year, you must have read it, but at that moment, him asking me about Sathya Sai Baba, and I'm thinking, Swami's in this room, kind of maneuvering this conversation, actually. So I go to Parthi. I also wanted someone to train the nurses and all that, because no one has done anything with endoscopes. So I took one of my nurses, John. That's another long story, but I'm not going to talk about that now. So John, I asked him to come, and then he came later on for the inauguration, actually. So I want to show the video. It's a beautiful video. So Swami had not come for almost 6 months to the super specialty hospital at that time. And that morning, what happened was, he had said that was the day of the inauguration. I mean, not the inauguration, the start. He had given that date, right? So we had to start whether he came or not. We had to start that. So everything was going on. Swami's students were getting ready to chant Rudram. They were so wonderful. And one thing back on my mind was, God, I wish we sang some bhajans, but everything was going like war speed, and then we get a word, Swami's not coming. I said, okay, and obviously, it's kind of disappointing, but we said, okay, that's fine. We'll go have lunch, come back, and then we'll do our first scope. Because Swami has already given that date, right? We have to obey, do that. So when we came back, I said, why don't we have bhajans? Okay, and we had bhajans. Believe it or not, like literally seconds later, you get a call directly from Swami's residence saying that he's coming. Yeah? So we called our leaders at that time, hey, Swami's coming, They're like, no, we didn't know about it. So he's not coming. This is to me, that was a beautiful experience of, At the end of the day, everyone is there to root for each other, everyone is there to guide us. But at the end of the day, it's between us and God, Swami. Nothing around that can change that. Here, we are saying he's coming, and these people are saying, oh, he's not because he hasn't told us. But immediately they realized Swami was coming. And then we were all ready. We had, I was given the honor of taking Swami from room to room, kind of explaining everything. That's what the video is. It's really beautiful, and I'll talk through the video. There's some cute things actually. If you can show the video, brothers. Don't worry about this. So we were all inside waiting for Swami. This is the hallway. Since he hadn't come for so many months, the entire hospital was told that they could actually. That's me and Dr. Conjeevaram. So when he came to light the lamp, they just wanted him to light one of the wicks, and that's it. But he insisted to turn so that he could light each and every wick. Actually, it's beautiful. And then he comes and just stares at his own photograph. It felt like eternity because he was just literally looking at it. So here is one of the rooms. That is John, and John has no clue, right? He's never met Swami. He gave flowers, and Swami is so beautifully asking where you are and all that. And then he gives back the flowers, and John was shocked. He never gave back something as a gift. Like he's giving that as Swami as a gift, and Swami is giving it back. He was very perturbed, and I said, "Hey, this is such a blessing that he's actually given." So we wanted to demonstrate to Swami what a colonoscopy looks like. That means, if you go through a colon, what does it look like on a video? So we got the engineers in the super specialty hospital to make this tube, and I got them to make a hole, and I wanted to show Swami how we take out polyps. Polyps are like growths in the colon. So we practiced 100 times that morning. We got a jasmine bud, we put it in the hole, and we go with the wires, what we call snare it, we pluck it out. And each time it was working like that, And here, I was trying to do it, it does not pinch the thing. Nothing is coming out, I'm sweating. And here Swami is in front of me. When things would go wrong, you pray to Swami, right? Swami is right there, and I'm praying to Swami to make that clip, because I'm thinking if I don't do this, he's just gonna leave, we were explaining, and it felt like eternity, and I was getting so nervous, and finally it did, after prayers in that room. But Swami is amazing, he's explaining everything to everyone, because it's not that he doesn't know, he always asks you a lot of questions. He knows everything, but he wants everyone in that room to kind of learn about it, right? So finally, we're showing him, Swami, this is what a polyp looks like. But the jasmine bud was huge, right? And again, a teachable movement. He's saying, to every polyp, is it this big size? Like he said, no, Swami is usually very small. And Dr. Reddy is explaining as well. And Swami is so beautifully patient, right? He's just listening, as if he doesn't know. I think that's the beauty of, here he's teaching us an incredible humility, right? And yes, I know I'm God, but I still need to be with you guys. And this is the next rule we were telling him about. I speak Telugu, but I cannot speak Telugu when I'm nervous or English comes very easy. Because Swami obviously speaks Telugu, right? And here I'm kind of explaining to him everything in English, and I can see someone like punching me from the back. I'm like, who is bothering me when I'm actually talking with Swami, right? And so they're like trying to tell me to speak Telugu to Swami. So here we're kind of telling him, what we do. We take out stones, what we do with that. And Swami was like constantly making jokes. So it was really beautiful moment throughout the whole thing. Like he was giving us a lecture, but at the same time also talking about different health aspects of being a gastroenterologist. I also specialize in liver diseases. He was talking about liver disease, just explaining. And I'll show you a slide at the end. One thing I really wanted to talk to Swami about is that, so, when people look at this, people think, oh my God, you did this, or a group of people did this. But everything that we do in our lives, including this retreat, right? So many people are part of it. I think it's very important for us to acknowledge that every single moment. Of course, we might say, give kudos to the leadership, but everyone is involved. And I was trying to tell him now that he needs to know that so many people help to make that happen, actually. So it was really beautiful, the whole experience. And then he came and saw what's called the recovery unit. He was very, very, very happy. He took all these pamphlets we had made, brochures, and took them all. He goes back to Kulwant Hall. He brings all the students in the Kulwant Hall, and he's telling them minute by minute what happened here. So we found out afterwards. It's really beautiful, actually. You can actually stop the video. And then what happened was that day, there was also an orthopedic conference going on. He went there, blessed them, and then he left. And then I actually stayed back for 3 months and because the way I still had to take care of my work at the University of Michigan, so all my evenings were online. So I finished my work around 4 or 5 at the hospital and spent till the last minute of when the canteen closes. So I never had darshans of Swami, like physical darshans of Swami for those 3 months, most of the time. But I was getting everything. I always say when you give much, get much more. People were giving me all these things. There was a lady who was giving me these original photographs that she was collecting from the 50s, 60s, 70s. She gave me this album. She gave me this bead necklace that Swami blessed. She gave me the sand she collected when he used to walk on sand. One of the doctors gave me the hair locks of Swami. I mean, we always attach ourselves to what we think are the gifts, but people give. Next slide. And the November birthday before the physical body passed on, this was 2 days afterwards. Normally, that day he actually sent instructions to see all the doctors and the entire team, actually. Then next slide. He came and we were made to sit in line, and then he came to each one of us twice. It was vibhuti packets. It was really beautiful, and then he just left. It was meant as if that visit to the hall was just for us, and then the symphony orchestra team was supposed to perform, but never happened. As soon as he was done with us, he just left. Actually, Arati happened, and then he left. Next slide. So I always think to myself, how can we? We've been talking a lot about giving, selfless, but how can we be in that state all the time? That's important, right? Of course, it's hard to do, One day I was in a wedding reception, random wedding reception. I don't know what made me tell one of my Sai aunties, I was young at that time, so young. And I said, Auntie, I said with confidence, I meant it. I said, Auntie, I'm ready to give up my life for Swami. I'm at a stage in my life to give up my life for Swami. Sometimes we say that, but do we really understand what that means? But I thought I meant, it was really true, came from here. So that day, I get a dream. In that dream, I'm sitting in Kulwant Hall in the main veranda. No one else is there, but thousands and thousands and thousands of people are there. And the bhajans start, and so I can just hear the bhajan sound. Swami graciously walks through the crowd. He comes straight to me, and I'm sitting, and he puts his hand over me, and he starts waving his hand. And vibhuti just starts pouring and pouring and pouring. I'm completely drenched in vibhuti, and he leaves. That when I got up, I realized, there was such a beautiful experience, but what made me realize that experience, that dream, was that that's the state I want to be in at all times. Not easy, but something I want to work towards. How do I, again, going back to that selfless service, that giving, without expectation. How can you be in that state all the time? Next one. Now, if we move on more recent, I have the fortunate to go to Africa twice. In June of last year and April of this year. For the next couple of slides. First, we went to Nigeria and Benin, and then 3 countries: Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. When we look at each other here, and we look at where we go, even here, like in the U.S., places of work, and when we go to other countries, we see the diversity, as Swami says, and look at the unity. And it's really beautiful. How do we, go beyond those physical, whatever the assumptions of differences are, and work together. That's important. And because the goal is one. The goal is to help another. So when that goal is already set up in our minds, why do we spend so much time thinking about the differences and the assumptions on assumptions? Next one. Of course, you go to Africa, there's tons and tons of people. And it just so happened in Kenya when we met, it was a national doctor strike there, so they had no doctors in the government setting serving them for a couple of weeks. So needless to say, when we set up these camps in some of the remote places, there were thousands and thousands waiting. They had to come at 4 a.m., 3 a.m. By the time we got there, there's so many people to do the work. I can keep going. Next few slides. Again, important, whatever the situation is, we have to make that happen, right? We can't say, oh, this is what I do, this is who I am. Just get into any role. A lot of times I actually work as a pharmacist. I'm not a pharmacist by trade. Of course, I'm being a doctor, I know about all medication. But when that need is there, because we're always short sometimes of pharmacists, I take that role, which is absolutely fine, right? Again, the example being, if the need is there, you gotta do it if you're able to. Next slides. Keep going. And the gratitude you receive from the patients who receive is unbelievable. Something as simple as sight. I think you don't have to go to Africa to acknowledge this or appreciate this. Even in the US, so many people, just simple as like reading glasses makes a big difference. Things that they can't see well, you give them a pair of reading glasses. With the reading glasses, you can actually have an approximate sight, and then you can make it happen actually. So that's the beauty. Next 3 slides. This time we were able to do a lot of cool things, like I'm a gastroenterologist. We were actually able to do endoscopy on the fields, actually, using portable disposable endoscopes. It's really nice, actually. Swami made that happen. Swami schools are there, so many schools in Africa, and they really teach the students responsibility, that is taking charge. Students volunteer in everything there, which is really amazing. They help with the kitchen, they were helping us with all the arrangements. inspiring our young to get involved and giving them that platform. Because our kids, SSC kids, I always see when they're arranging the center, they want to do something, or soup kitchen, whatever it is, giving them that opportunity. Of course, we want to be there with them, but give them that platform to do things on their own with our guidance, with our presence there. That's such an important thing. I'll keep going. Here I joined hands making chapatis, and they thought I was, I'm an expert in that. Little do they know. And they were actually teaching me how to make chapatis. Next slide. Of course, the young adults. When I give talks, I always talk about young adults so much because they give so much joy, but they also do things so selflessly. They are thinking, I always remind everyone, when young adults do something, they're thinking of their brothers and sisters. They're not thinking of themselves directly. That's the beauty of it, actually. They're thinking of where the need is. They're thinking of their own brothers and sisters. They're not necessarily thinking of themselves as an individual. Next. Again, I said earlier on, feel confident that you can not only inspire, but be open to get inspired from everyone. So all some of the young adults in Nigeria and next slide. I just wanted to show a quick video before I end. This was the homemade video of the first Africa trip. But again, few of us, even a small team can do so much. Because people always come to help. All you have to say is, hey, this is what we want to do. Maybe you can raise a voice. This is one of Swamis schools. Whenever we do things, get everyone involved. Everyone has a role. So here we are actually asking the locals who do the prayers. We were doing that every day, asking them to be part of that. So they feel part of us. That's the important thing, right? It's not like us versus somebody else. Even though we might think, oh, we are an organization going somewhere. At the end of the day, they're all one. So giving everyone that feeling that they're actually one. That's all we have. be rainy season at that time, not a single drop of rain. And then the camp was done, we took our the group photos and all that. Literally 30 seconds later, the heavens just opened. It was just unbelievable. This is the Sai Center in Benin. They have more than 1,000 members, all local Beninites. It is just unbelievable. It's so beautiful. We also did a EHP, we talked about AD, and I was part of that. You can tell this is a homemade video, right? The Star Wars. Literally, this is 30 seconds after we took our photograph. It was just. You can stop. Next slide. And again, I want to. So this is the thing I was talking about. This is what I was showing to Swami. Again, this is Swami's quote, and I'm trying to tell Swami this. Right? I want to read this. It's a beautiful Swami words. Together, all together, the knowledge we have gained, we shall brighten and brighten till it enlightens all. Together, all together, we shall share as friends the fortune we have earned, the vision and thrill. Together, all together, we shall acclaim peace till we raise its praise into worshipful deeds. Together, all together, we shall intone the pranavas. Om, 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 Om. We shall together sing. To me, it's such a beautiful quote about all of us working in unity and the power of unity. Next slide. Again, this is one of my absolute favorite quotes. Just do it. Again, you got to be thoughtful about it. As Swami always says, use your discrimination. During the interview, I asked Swami, I always, run and do things, and sometimes my wife finds out I'm going across the world through one of the other side brothers or sisters. I meant to tell her, I haven't had a chance to tell her. And so I asked Swami, how do we balance? He always says, right, when you commit to something, you gotta do it, right? So when we commit, married life, you're married, so immediate responsibility comes to our family first. You gotta do that. So I asked Swami, how do we balance that? And he said, that's a very good question, he said. And then he said, you have to use your discrimination. And he didn't say a whole lot. I'm like, that sounds good, but I don't know if it actually helped me understand what exactly he was talking about. But later on in a discourse I was sitting, and he said, it is true when we make a commitment, when we have commitment in our lives, like family and all that, it is true we have to do that work. But he said, at some point we have to cross that line to serve the community, people who actually need us, whether it's our own side brothers in our center or in the community. We gotta cross that line, feel comfortable, and actually do that. It's an effort that we have to make. So I thought then it really made sense to me. That's something that I really love actually. And then I was also talking about us inspiring others, right? We can, it doesn't matter in the sense that whether we get anything back or not, but never underestimate the power of inspiration and transformation that we are constantly doing. What I mean by that is that through the service that we do, especially when it's selfless, when it's you're not expecting anything in return, you're actually transforming others as well. I'll give you a quick example. My nurse one day told me, my University of Michigan email, it shouldn't have happened, but it happened. Usually it's your name, part of your name, right, for any work email. But my University of Michigan email is onsairam@umich.edu. Yeah, because I thought they were asking me a password or something when I first joined. I gave that, and they actually made that my email. So my nurse, who works very closely with me, all my patients, we have a lot of difficult patients. One day she told me, you know what, these patients, the nurses are the first step when the patients are angry or upset. She said, when they call me, they're like, they're yelling at me, and I get so upset. But I don't do that anymore. She said, you know why? She said, every time a patient is yelling at her or screaming at her, very frustrated, in her own mind, she has no idea what Onsairam means, but she knows that's my email. She thinks of that email, that word Onsairam to me, and she says, you're so calm all the time with everyone, you're so unaffected. Every time she is in a difficult position, she just throws her hands. In her own mind, she keeps saying, Om Sairam, Om Sairam, Om Sairam. She told me. She said whenever she says that, she just feels good. Again, she doesn't understand the word or anything, but she connects that Om Sairam to me. Very similar to what I talked about, right? We reflect some goodness. When we reflect goodness, people take that from us. Okay? That's very, very important, actually. So I'll end, and thank you so much for the incredible